Hey everyone, welcome back to the Speak Up Erica podcast. And in today's episode, we have Glow. Hey Glow,
Hey guys,
how are you
so good to,
doing? Oh,
I'm doing
sorry.
so well. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Glow. Thanks for being a guest. I'm really excited to have you on.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. It's so amazing. Listen to your other podcasts, and each is such like an inspiring story. So it's so exciting to be able to just chat with you here and have some fun together.
Yeah. Um, so before we get started into our topic, which is going to be about music and mental health, could you share a little bit about yourself and who you are?
Sure. My name is Gloria. My nickname is Glow, so I usually go by that too, as I guess more of an artist. And I am currently based in New York City. I've lived here for about 5 years. I'm originally from the Los Angeles area and in California. So growing up there has been a very formative part of my life. My parents are European, so I also have that aspect of my heritage, and it's it's been something that I've just carried throughout having like immigrant parents and just learning how to navigate the world as a young woman, and just music has really helped me in my mental health journey. So as I've gone through different forms of recovery and healing process, and as a sexual assault survivor from about 3 years ago, it's really been helpful for me to express myself through music and song and just be able to heal with others and hear their stories and amplify their voices that way. So that's
Um,
about me.
Thank you so much for sharing with us. That's awesome. That's really awesome. It's funny because Glow and I, we met through, we're both in different parts of the world, I guess, but we met
Mhm.
through our online festival. And
Yeah,
Glow's performance was really amazing there. She chatted about mental health and music
thank you.
and really dissected the lyrics and like made you appreciate the music a lot more. So, but
Thank
yeah,
you. Yeah, the
yeah, of
meaning
course.
the meaning behind the lyrics really um I view music and as such an art, and the lyrics themselves are basically like poetry that you sing. So poetry, just as any art like a painting or anything, you're able to interpret on your own. So the artist has probably their own intentions and their own experiences that they have written into it, but something that I appreciate about it is the way that I'm able to relate to it and more people are able to relate to it. So I kind of shared my interpretation of that. And
Mhm.
that's exciting to be able to relate on more of an emotional and intellectual level.
Yeah. Um, Glow, before we get into the topic, I guess, could you share more about your music background and kind of how you got started in the songwriting process and stuff?
Yeah, so I've really been involved with music kind of my whole life. My It's not really that I got into it with my family. My family aren't really musical. Besides my dad, he studied like classical piano. My mom just enjoys singing. She used to be a personal assistant for different bands in Germany in like the 70s and 80s. So that
Wow.
was kind of fun. So I've just known a lot. A lot of my parents' friends are musicians in LA. So I kind of just grew up in the scene over there, just around a lot of musicians, but I never really thought of myself as a musician. Um, I did choir here and there. And growing up in school, I would sing at different little church functions. I would sing in musicals and plays. But I really did it more just out of like my own personal enjoyment. I never thought of it as um, something to really pursue on my own until I really needed to. And so I feel like that was something when I feel like I hit rock bottom. That was you get so much clarity when you hit rock bottom and you're like, okay, these are my needs, like not what like other people tell me my needs are, like what society is telling me I need to like add to myself, and like, different things like, education is very important, and try to pursue college and try to pursue a different, development in your career and all these things. But what helped me in my moment of need was music, and that helped me connect to like myself and like a higher power, and just like connect to others. And I think that that is something that helped me go on and realize like, okay, music is really a part of me and I can't deny it, and I should value it. One of my friends, who's also a musician, we were chatting and he's like, music is such a responsibility. So if you have that ability, you literally have to steward it so well. Like you can't just take it for granted. And that really struck me. And I was like, oh my goodness, I can't take music for granted. And I have a responsibility to share it with the world. And I don't need to be famous or anything. I don't need to like
Mhm.
have critical acclaim, but being able to share my talent, that's a way that I'm able to express my self to people, and also to amplify others, be able to connect with us, recognize a fellow musician and be like, wow, like they're what you're creating is amazing and I want
Mhm.
to share you with others. So that's why I really also love Locals Fest and the whole mentality behind that, because before the pandemic I would love going to all these different
I
festivals
know.
and just love the community aspect of it. And it's
Mhm.
festivals aren't competitive, it's not like a battle of the bands, it's just all these different genres of bands performing together, and they have really shared audiences. They're not like competing for the audience, and they're not competing for money or a prize. They're just sharing in this art, and I love that. And I think that in our everyday life and just as musicians in general, we should be constantly sharing, constantly jamming together. That's something I loved when I first moved here from college. I really made my friends through just jamming with people, and it was really just me listening in onto their own music and kind of spontaneously like joining in with a little riff here and there. Um, and I didn't think much of it at the time, but that's making music, and
Mhm.
you don't have to necessarily publish something from it, but that you still shared that moment, and that was really special. So that's what I really love.
Aw, thank you so much for sharing, Glow. I think that you gave some really great insights and perspectives that I've never even thought about. Like, when you shared your friend, saying that you have a responsibility to, share um, your talent of singing and music. Like, that's actually crazy thinking about it because I don't think people realize that as well. Um, yeah, that was beautiful. And also that the fact that festivals really is just coming together and just sharing art and talent and music, and that it is no competition. I haven't even
Mhm,
considered that before either, and it's so true.
mhm.
Yeah.
That's so great.
Glow, af since you, chatted about the music side, could you chat more about, the mental health aspect? And I feel like you always, through your Instagram or what I've seen is that you've always been, advocating for mental health, and could you chat more about that?
Yeah, so mental health is just huge on my heart, just because um, growing up, I've always had different friends in different walks of life that have really been affected by lots of different um, aspects of their mental health, whether it be, like a clinical diagnosis or just something that I
Mhm,
could tell that they were, struggling with. I believe we all have different aspects of our life that involve mental health in different ways, because our brain is what tells our body to do what it does, and our brain processes everything. And just life is so tough, and things happen in life that are out of our control, and there can be just different imbalances, and I believe that affects your mental health. So whether or not you're predisposed to a certain condition, things can happen, and people get depressed, people get anxious, and it's important to validate these things and be able to acknowledge them and say, okay, like this is a feeling, and this is a common feeling too. You're not alone in that. A lot
Mm.
of people, there's a lot of shame around mental health, and it's like, oh, you're crazy, or oh, you need, to get fixed. And that's really not the case. Something that I've learned, especially, I love observing, and that's really a lot of how I learn. I've just noticed that even with people who've been like clinically diagnosed with certain mental health issues, quote unquote. A lot of these things, it's like a spectrum. It ebbs and flows. Some days, you are needing to have more medical help. You are needing to have more therapy and more of a support system that's very active in your life. And there's some seasons of your life where you're very independent and very able to function, a little bit more on your own. And I think that it should be more normalized for people to realize, okay, like I should have support generally in any area. And that's just a wise thing that I love, that a lot of more, I guess you could say, celebrities, highly acclaimed people, CEOs, things like that, they're coming out with just being more transparent about the fact that they do have a therapist. They do go to
Yeah.
different therapy sessions, and have different psychological, like, coping mechanisms in place already. And it's not always as a treatment form. Sometimes it's as a way to sort of prepare for things. It's like almost preventative in a way. So they know that they're going to go into stressful situations in life. When you have a high stakes job, when you have a high stakes career, when you are going into transitions in your life, as in going to a new school, moving to a new place, introduced to new people groups, that those are
Mhm.
stressful situations in your life, and your body is so sensitive, and it's built that way for beautiful reasons, to be so adaptable, and um, to be in tune, and all these different neurons, and all your body is just constantly responding to different stimuli in life. So it's important to support that, and even in a preventative way, in a way that you are preparing yourself for a future adjustment. And that way, when things that might scare you, like an anxiety attack, for instance, if that comes upon you, it's not going to scare you as much, because you kind of know how to cope. I remember when I had my first anxiety attack, I
Mhm.
it was terrifying, because at first, it's the first time I ever felt this way. My body's reacting in such a strange way. I literally, like, couldn't see. But I have been aware of that. I've been educated about that. I'd helped my friends who had panic attacks, do breathing techniques and stuff like that. So I was able to kind of adapt that to my own self. And for me, what really helped was, breathing definitely helped, because that's more of like a physical response to get your brain more oxygen. And the other aspect that really helped me was lights out. I kind of laid myself down too, and then I just put headphones in and I listened to music. And
Awesome. Yeah.
I think that different times are, you're able to listen to different kinds of music. I know for me, when my brain is so circulating, and for instance during like that panic attack, versus maybe when I might be like sad or something, I might want to listen. If I'm sad, I probably want to listen to something with like uplifting lyrics. But if when I'm like in a panic attack, and literally like I love the science behind a lot of these mental mental health um, syndromes and stuff like that, because it really, being able to visualize what is going on in a person's body helps me have more empathy and understanding of, okay, like this is what's going on,
Mhm.
and how we can adapt to that. So for instance, when I'm having a panic attack, I know that like my neurons are literally just like circulating all over the place, and they're not able to focus on any one thing. Um, Other than something that is completely like a neutral. So I just listen to instrumental jazz. Like I can't have any lyrics, I can't have anyone speaking to me, but just instrumental jazz will kind of help it me calm down, kind of like breathe to like the beat, and like instrumental jazz is also very spontaneous, so it doesn't follow like the typical music flow. And so it almost enables it to be a little bit more, and it doesn't have to predict what the next song is, doesn't have to like, it just helps my body settle into a more natural rhythm. And for me, that helps. And also, the beauty of mental health is that while there are commonalities and it's great for people to like recognize that, relate, we're not alone, it's also so personal. So I think
Mhm.
that's why it shouldn't be stigmatized as well, because you really have to get to know the person, you have to get to know the circumstances. Different people are triggered for different reasons. Some people are aware of these triggers, some people aren't. So just having a conversation about it, and it's kind of similar to what we're having here, just being able to talk about
Yeah,
it and
exactly.
open each other's perspective. So yeah. Mhm.
Oh, thank you so much, Glow, for just for being transparent about your own experiences right now. Like earlier, you shared about your sexual assault experience and sharing about your panic attack now and just how you cope with things. I think that's really beautiful and that um, it's really helpful for the people who are listening. I would hope so because it kind of just lets them know that they're not alone, which is what you've been talking about and sharing as well. Um, could I ask you how you got started into, would you call it music therapy?
Yeah, so it's music therapy is something that I started with, is kind of something that I accidentally came about, but then
Oh,
I
okay.
became more educated in as I started to do it more myself. So,
Mhm.
really, one of the only ways that I'd be able to calm down and kind of connect within was more through music. So I just listened to music through myself, and then I realized, okay, like I know a lot about like my different friends who study psychology. I've always been super interested in cognitive behavioral therapy and how
Mm,
that is a therapy mechanism that really helps teach people coping mechanisms and empowers them to continue that on their own, so they're
mhm,
not dependent on a therapist. And the therapist is more just like a tool, it's more like a bridge into someone being able to have more awareness about themselves and be able to support themselves and certain people in their lives that they entrust with that position as well. And so that's something that I learned. So music therapy was really important for me until I was able to identify certain safe people in my life. And that's something that I've also realized, especially with working with my mom, is a huge part of this foundation in California called Safe Passage, and they work with survivors of domestic violence. Safety and like having safe people around you is really a privilege that a lot of people don't have, especially when they are coming from, maybe like a low income situation, or they just are literally in a location that just doesn't have a lot of components of safety. And so they just don't have access to that. So while a lot of effective therapy does happen when you have a good support system around you, which includes safe
mhm,
people, that might be your family. For a lot of people, it's not their family. It has to be, for instance, there are certain programs like AA, and you have like a mentor, a sponsor. And so when you have someone who's able to sponsor you and meet up with you, like that's consistent of a safe person. Group therapy, like the people within your group, you have specific boundaries within to share. So, like, those are safe people. Your therapist
mhm,
would be a safe person. But when you're kind of going through a trauma and you haven't established those safe people yet, one of the easiest ways for me to create a safe place in my mind, my heart, my soul and spirit is through music.
oh,
And
yeah,
because music really has more of an emotional response,
mhm,
it's able to bypass those negative thoughts that can be circulating, and it can connect you straight to your heart. And for me,
I realized that I had a huge disconnect from my head and my heart. And that is something that I learned through therapy, through prayer, through different just books and things like that. That a lot of people have been educated just throughout like society and like our whole culture's focus on being intellectual and like how being like a type A person is how people win in life, and
Mhm.
developing your right brain is something that is in education and basically in our educational system. So they're developing the right brain more than the left brain. So whether or not you like have a inclination towards the left or the right brain as from birth, you are naturally just throughout the systems of life probably going to be inclined to develop your right brain more than your left. And so you have this natural imbalance within you. And so for some people, due to that, it's just harder for them to connect to their emotions, which is part of their left brain. And so understanding this whole neuroscience behind people's responses has helped me understand how music, which is, you know, the arts, it connects your left brain. So whenever I am operating too much in my right brain, when I am having those, when I'm overthinking, or when I'm having um, a lot of panic, can start with those circulating thoughts, and
Mhm.
so that's when you're operating a lot in your right brain. So if you're able to sort of balance and bridge that to go into your left brain a little bit more, you're able to gain more control of the situation. You're just able to have more balance. And also, maybe control isn't the best word, because the left brain is actually the more spontaneous part of your body. So it
Mhm.
actually operates well when there is uncontrolled circumstances. And so that's
Hmm.
something that I've had to learn, and honestly constantly every day I have to learn how to surrender control and learn how to just realize, okay, like I'm not in control of this, but that's okay, because I am, you know, developing trust. I am, there's just certain things that um, a person that is more inclined to being a left brain um, will naturally have, versus me, who's like more naturally of a right brain. I will be a little bit more analytical in a certain situation. So I think that music therapy has really helped me connect my head and my heart, and also be more understanding of, you know, the artists and the musicians around me who might naturally be more a little bit left brain developed, and also how to support them and help them connect into the more right brain things, which are analytical. And part of CBT is, you know, analyzing your different the roots of your triggers and things like that. And so like a left
Mhm.
brain inclined person might not automatically think of like, oh, why am I feeling this way? They might just jump into the feeling. And so it's important to have a balance of both. So that's what I've learned through it, and I it keeps me excited, keeps me intrigued, because throughout a person's life, those different levels change just based on stimuli, environment, atmosphere, and so it's always cool to check in with people, and check in with yourself to see like, oh, which way am I leaning, which way is more proficient for this moment, and things like that.
Oh, awesome. Thank you, Glow. I think
Thank you.
that it's it's really interesting to hear about the scientific aspect as you're describing to us, and thank you for the information. I think like most of my podcast episodes, it's more like just personal experience and people talking about their therapy, but it's really great to hear about the neuroscience side. Um,
Thank you. I love
yeah.
like science is something I know. I definitely came to New York to study more business and film, but I just love science. And my fallback school was to study whales in Puget Sound, and like marine
Wow.
biology and just science. And more specifically zoology, but I remember like studying anatomy and studying genetics in like middle school and high school was something that helped me appreciate myself more, and just learning how the body works made me value myself more and value others
Mhm.
more, because I was so in awe of how our bodies are just so adaptive and
Yeah.
so intricately working together. So yeah,
Mhm.
the scientific aspect definitely gives a deeper understanding. Oh, and just a quick little reference in that one book that's really helped me with the neuroscience aspect that I believe is just important for people, actually more specifically those people who have not experienced trauma in deep ways, and for them to understand the way that the body responds mentally and physiologically, and so that gives you a little bit more of an empathetic understanding when you're dealing with people who've experienced trauma. And most people have experienced trauma in different ways in their life, but
Mhm.
sometimes it's hard for people to connect with like a deeper trauma, like, you know, maybe sexual assault, or maybe, you know, a huge death in the family, or maybe some sort of yeah, one of those big ones. And so it's just hard for people to understand that without maybe some scientific tests and things behind it. And the way that he explains it is really good. So I highly recommend The Body Keeps the Score. And it's a great book written by a Harvard educated neuroscientist, and he is from the Netherlands. So he also has a little bit of more of like an international view of things too, which is always helpful to have. And yeah, it's just really cool because he talks about basically how the body responds. And then throughout the end of the book, he also gives certain coping mechanisms and things that have worked and haven't worked. So you can not only like educate yourself, but also pass that knowledge on to others. So read
Awesome.
it.
Thank you. I'll definitely link that book in the podcast notes. Um,
Great.
because you're in, like, you don't have healthcare as accessible as in Canada, maybe, like, something on how to get resources in where you are and kind of something like that.
Oh, that's
Um
interesting. I feel like the way that I do have a lot of benefits with my job,
mhm,
so I'm not sure if I would have the best, because a lot of my resources that I use, for instance, like my therapy, I get it for free um within my job has like a portal of like the
right.
different therapists that, and we have, you know, healthcare within that. And then we have
I
well,
remembered my
different things
other
like that. I know
question.
for a lot of other things, I've just used like Google for
Mhm.
you know, Google different resources. I remember when the rape hotline is very helpful. I had no idea who to talk to. I didn't know what, like, you know, um hospital to go to. I don't know what to do. It's not like something you get educated about and prepare for. So the
No,
hotline was
yeah.
great. They like gave me information, spoke slowly. Health what's it called, social workers are amazing. They will hold your hand through everything, especially when your brain is just not wanting to process or do any sort of research to Google things for yourself. So a
Mhm.
social worker, that's their job, and they'll be able to like calm you down and be understanding. Different community groups like a church or a temple, or a there's different you know, there's different organizations like AA, SLA, and there's other aspects too of, well, honestly, a lot of programs for maybe like homeless people, or maybe people who have gone through different abuse. They will have resources for you. For instance, if you
Mhm.
need any like legal aid, or if you need um, any just referrals. A lot of people, they just, you know, naturally have all this information, and maybe they do have deal with a little bit more extreme cases, but they'd be able to point you in the right direction. So it's always good to be able to just advocate in that way. Anything that's like local, like reach out to different friends. I definitely asked a lot of like my friends, oh, like what did you do when you were in this experience?
Mhm.
Like what how did you contact like these different practitioners? And they would, share their experience and give some recommendations. Um, and Instagram has also been helpful. I've noticed a lot, especially this summer. It's been a great way to share resources. A lot of people use helpful infographics, helpful links, little master docs, link in bio moments. And so I think that that's really helpful too,
Mhm.
to just be aware of, click through. I love saving things. I have on, you can do the little save tab on Instagram, and I'll like have a
Yeah.
little folder, and I'll just be like info, and I have the O as like a zero to look all cute. So it's like info, and I just keep that as info, even if I don't need it right now. It's just a great way to have a resource, for the future, or if, for instance, if like a friend needs it, or I'm scrolling through, and just that's also something I've realized in mental health, because I know that social media can be used a lot in a negative way. There's, a
Yeah.
lot of cyberbullying that happens, but I also, that sort of empowers me to do the opposite and flip the narrative. And for instance, if there's someone that I don't know that is, I can see is struggling or might be struggling, because you never want to assume, I can just have the confidence to share like a positive resource with them, or even give them a positive comment, on like a picture or something, and be like, have a great day, stay strong. Um,
Mhm.
and, there's proper boundaries. So, sometimes I would say like, hey, reach out to me if you need to. Sometimes I wouldn't, because you don't always want to invite a stranger to talk to you. But
Mhm.
it is empowering to be able to just through social media share a resource, share a link, be like, hey, like I don't know if you've heard of this, but like NAMI is like a really great resource, if you are feeling down and you need someone to talk to, things like that. And because I think, as I said before, social media has been used in such negative ways to tear people down, and I think it can be a great way to build people up, and connect in a way that, I might never see this person, but I'll be able to give them a helpful resource, and that might be the thing that they needed to help them carry on. So yeah.
Mhm. Agreed. I think even when you're talking about safe spaces, trying to find a safe space online can be a something that they can do as well. Yeah.
Totally. And that's also really helpful. I definitely went through a whole purge, I guess, of who I was following. And
Mhm.
because it's a lot of what you let in, it really affects you. And I kind of mentioned before about how like sometimes I can only listen to like instrumental music because my body just can't process that. And it's okay to be sensitive. You have to be like so in tune with your body, because if your body is like highly sensitive right now, it's trying to tell you something. And something that I had to learn was that it wasn't like there was something wrong with me and I'm like, oh, I'm stuck this way forever, like I'm going to be highly sensitive forever, like oh no, like I'm going to have to change the way that I live. I just had to realize like, oh, at this time I have to adjust, and like right now, like I can't watch movies that have sex in them. Like I can't
Mhm.
like listen to songs that are like have explicit language in it. And I just,
Mhm.
there was a time period that I just couldn't, because it would be triggering. And just so I had to kind of filter what was coming into me, because it would be damaging, and I don't want to like keep poking at a wound. So I kind of like let that wound heal over until, there was a bit more like thickness there and regular skin, so I could kind of just approach things with a regular lens. And after I did take the time to heal, now it's, instead of becoming callous to it, and not having feelings towards seeing different triggers, now I'm able to have like a healthy barrier and understand and still be aware, because I feel like a lot of people, when they're highly sensitive, they want to just keep beating at it until you can't feel it anymore. And that's sad, because um for instance, if that, you want to be able to feel like good things in life, so you shouldn't try to like be insensitive to the bad things, because then you might be insensitive to positive things in your life too. So but yeah, creating a safe place online definitely was for me, like who I followed, sometimes who was following me. Not everyone needs to see your journey.
Mhm.
And sometimes that can be almost anxiety inducing, of like who is watching you and who is not. So sometimes you just create that boundary. You can let people back into your life later, but it is up to you and your control, like who is giving you input and advice at the moment. So and that, I think, is just empowering in and of itself. And I think it kind of all comes down to awareness, and that awareness really makes you aware of the fact that you have power over these things that might make you feel powerless in the moment. So yeah.
Oh, yay. Thank you so much, Glo. I feel like I can just listen to you talk all day. Like your voice is so soothing and everything's so informative. Like, oh my goodness.
Oh,
um,
thank you.
yeah. But I just wanted to say before we wrap things up, and just I wanted to ask how we can support you and your future music endeavors, I guess.
Oh yeah. So I feel like part of my mental health process is that I do like to write every day, and that looks different from an actual songwriting session to, sometimes I'm just like walking through the park and I see some birds and I'm like, birds rhyme with words. And I don't know, I just kind of like go off on a little like riff or something. But
Mhm.
I'll always try to write like something. But now I feel like I've been getting more songs, more complete concepts. I'm also working a little bit more on like instruments. I'm getting my guitar restrung as a lefty guitar, embracing the fact that I'm a lefty and I don't have to conform
Woo.
to right-handed guitar standards. So that's a journey for me too, just learning how to like write music to that too, and collab with different artists. So I'm like creating a project versus just like creating for myself, which is exciting. So that's going to probably happen sometime next year. I'll be just trying to open the narrative on like my Instagram a little bit more, talk with more people, get different people's perspectives on their own
Mhm.
musical and artistic processes. So kind of stay tuned a bit for that. Different podcasts like this. So anything I think would be the easiest to just refer to me on my Instagram, which is Glow Holzapfel, GLOHOLZAPFEL. And that way, because anything that I will put on there is I'm kind of just try to share little snippets of my life, little mental health um, resources, different things I'm passionate about, and want to advocate different things going on in the world, social justice and all
Mhm.
that. And for instance, if I collab with anyone, I'll obviously share all of their information on there as well. So I think that's like the best resource to just keep in touch with me. And um, yeah, yeah,
Awesome.
just stay
Yay.
tuned.
Thank you
Hmm.
so much, Glo. Thank you for being such a great guest on this podcast. I'm so happy that we crossed paths.
Me
Mhm.
too. It was such
Yeah,
a divine like connection, to be honest, because it was
yeah.
sometimes, and that's also really exciting too, because sometimes you'll just open your mind to like a possibility and then it'll just come in your path and you're like, wow, this was meant to be, and I'll take it.
Mhm.
um you know be thankful and like appreciate the situation and take it for what it needs to be. So thank you for this
Yeah.
opportunity to chat, and we're obviously going to continue to chat, continue the conversation, and open it up to others too to join in.
Yes. Yay. Thank you so much, Glo. Thank you to everyone who's
Yay.
listening as well.
Yes.
Awesome. Bye.
Bye.
Okay.
Take care.
Uh-huh.